Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. We are live. We are ready for week 6 in the NFL. And we're doing things a little bit differently today. Just a little bit. Just a teensy bit different in terms of how we're recording the audio. So here's hoping, with our fingers crossed, that the audio sounds better and that we don't have the crackling issues that we've had in the past. For anybody that's in the chat, some people that are here normally, like say Chad or anybody really that's here normally, if you could just let me know in the chat how the audio sounds, and if there's changes throughout the show, if you can let me know, I would really appreciate that. I think I hopefully figured it out. Short of I have to get a new microphone. That's what the next step, unfortunately, will have to be. But hopefully we don't have to take it that far. All right. That's where we need to go. That's where we need to be. All right. Ready to roll here. Week 6, 2024 NFL. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week 6 of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2024 NFL season and postseason. We are here. We are live for week 6, and fingers crossed, as I kind of mentioned right off the top of the show in the live stream, fingers crossed, we've got the audio issues figured out on the live stream. I see LA Rabbit in the chat now saying, howdy, Justin, let's go. LA, thank you so much for joining me. Since you're here often, I'm going to ask you just kind of every now and then check in with me with how the audio sounds. I'm just curious about the crackling that we've had over the last couple of episodes. If you don't mind letting me know, I would really appreciate it. So, week 6, how did we do in week 5? Kind of middle of the road, at the very least, picking the games straight up. I wound up even money, 7-7 across the 14 games last week, because of course we do have bye weeks coming in now. And we had, for the second time this season, a very early loss of the rule of 4. Our second loss in the rule of 4 so far this season. Only had 3 betting underdogs win their games straight up in week 5. So basically what that has meant in years past is there's like a big overcompensation coming. Maybe it's not this week, but it's soon. And we saw it like week 2 and 3 and 4 were all like 8 betting underdogs, 7 betting underdogs. Man, it happens. We've had 2 already this season where the rule of 4 has not hit, which is a lot for this early in the year. So I was 7-7 straight up. I'm still even money on the season at 39-39, picking the game straight up. Where I've really found success this season is against the spread. Last week, 8-5-1 picking the games against the spread means I'm a full 9 games over 500 at 43-32-3 picking the league against the spread this season. So having a lot of success picking the games against Vegas's lines. Totals, I was underwater for the second week in a row, unfortunately, just barely, only at 6 and 8. So I was right there on the totals, one more going my way, and it's an even week. So I don't feel too bad about that, but I am now 5 games under 500, picking the totals at 36-41 with 1 push. Taking a peek at the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em pool for season 13 of this show. I did drop a couple of spots. I'm now in 22nd place out of 34, 355 of 649 possible confidence points. That's a clip of 54.7%, which actually is slightly moving forward from where I was at percentage-wise last week. I did bring in 59 of 105 points last week, good for 56.2%. Shout out to our week 5 5 winner, RR Sports, who brought in 90 of 105 possible confidence points in week 5, a clip of over 85%, which is a big week, good enough for RR Sports, who's been in this community for some time, to get the win in week 5. Tensa Tyler remains the overall leader, 419 of 649 points so far this season, 64.6%, which is actually a drop percentage-wise. So again, they're still in the lead, but the gap is closing with the teams that are behind them. But Tyler's been in the lead for the vast majority of this season. So Tyler's having a heck of a year. I've already talked my smack to him in the Ante and Co chat. So hopefully maybe he just starts getting some picks wrong intentionally, just to give us all a chance to catch up. We're going to take a peek now into Fantasy Corner, which is, of course, brought to you by my good friends at the Dynasty Trade Calculator. And if you check the description to this live stream or the VOD or however you interact with this show, you're going to find my affiliate link for the Dynasty Trade Calculator. And what is the Dynasty Trade Calculator? If you're new here, the Dynasty Trade Calculator is one of the absolute best resources available to you online if you do Dynasty, Keeper, or long-term fantasy football. You're talking about player rankings, trade evaluations, great podcasts with a ton of great experts on that site. You can configure the rankings and the trade evaluations to your particular league settings. So it does not matter what you do. If you do a super flex, if you do a 2 quarterback, which is different, if you have a tight end premium, running back points per carry, it does not matter. However your league is aligned, the Dynasty Trade Calculator, including individual defensive players, which is what we have in both of my Dynasty leagues, including IDPs, they got you covered for those too. The Dynasty Trade Calculator is incredible, and for as little as a cup of coffee, you can gain access to one of the absolute best championship caliber tools that are available to you online. I went 6-2 across my 8 fantasy football teams in week 5 action, pulling my overall record on the season to 22-18. So 4 games above 500. We like the direction we're going there. Best ball stayed exactly the same. I am still in first place in one of my best ball leagues. My other 2 leagues, including the paid one, still in 8th place. However, of those 6 wins that I had in fantasy last week, 2 of those 6 came in both of the important leagues, the dynasty leagues. In the professionals, I did pick up the win against Gavin, that being my 3rd win of the season. I'm 3-2, and I think I'm in like 3rd place in that league, which is awesome. Ante and Co. picked up my first win of the season against Kat, who is in the chat right now. Pulled my record to 1-4. Certainly have to pick up my heels there and win a couple more matchups here in a row before I start feeling comfortable. But wins in both of those leagues, we certainly enjoy seeing that. I have week 6 matchups against Rich in the Professionals Dynasty and against Rachel in Ante and Co. Rachel is off to a massive start to her season, and I'm hoping I can just distract her with facts about Canada, because that just kind of seems to be the way that our relationship goes. She asks me 25 questions about Canada. I try to give her 25 answers. So hopefully if I just distract her enough this week, maybe I might be able to sneak away with a win. And I'll take this opportunity, as I always do, to remind you that if you go to the description of this live stream, of the VOD, of the podcast episode, however you interact with this show, you're going to find all my results from last week, all my straight up against the spread and over under plays for week 6 in the NFL. You're going to find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool for season 13 of this show. You're also going to find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, a page where we talk football all week long. A lot of great folks on there doing exactly what I'm doing here. Some of them maybe even doing it better than I do. A lot of us folks on that page talking about football, giving you the picks. There's no better place to be. All right, let's catch up in the chat here. Blind Canadian Cat says ears perked. We appreciate that, my friend. Let's see. Chad, rough week for me. 7 out of 14. That was what I had too, at least straight up. I had a better week against the spread, but straight up, I was only 7-7. So definitely want to be picking up my heels at that part. Need a rebound, Chad Regina. Sounds good with the voice. Awesome, Chad. I appreciate that so much. And Kat just says pain, and that would be the response to the absolute whooping that I laid on them in the Ante and Co League. Kat also chimes in saying, "I'll take my 8-6 with my pride." Yeah, I mean, if you went 8-6 straight up last week, yeah, that's good because again, a lot of folks did not have super successful weeks last week. So 8-6, take the money and run. All right, we are setting a really good pace here early on. So, without further ado, let's get into these picks here for week 6 in the NFL. Worth noting, once again, we've got 4 teams that are on bye this week, those being the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Rams, the Miami Dolphins, and the Minnesota Vikings. So, both 5-0 teams are on bye this week. And look, I've talked about it. The early bye can be beneficial for the next couple of weeks because you're obviously well rested so early in the season. Down the stretch, I really do not like the fact that, like, if I'm one of these teams, I'm not stoked with having this early bye. So we look at like who had it last week? Tennessee, Philadelphia, the Chargers, and Detroit. Especially if I'm Philly and Detroit, and I have like Super Bowl aspirations, like very like they feel very much alive, or at least at the beginning of the season they do. Looking at that early bye week, I don't love that because that means down the stretch I'm going to be exhausted as we head towards the playoffs. So with a team like Kansas City or a team like Minnesota who have started the season undefeated, I would hate having that early bye week because, again, as it gets towards the end of the year, I'm going to have to start resting some of my guys. I'm going to be losing games down the stretch that I probably shouldn't, all because I had that early bye week. But let's kick things off on Thursday Night Football, a battle of the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers in Seattle taking on the Seahawks. Now, my model doesn't really know what to do with either one of these teams. Like it's finally kind of been the point where San Francisco and Seattle both are just kind of like, I got stuff I like about them and I've got stuff I don't like about them. And eh, it's you got San Francisco coming off a loss last week. Seattle has lost back-to-back games, and once again, I kind of kick myself because I really felt a particular way about that Seattle -6 and changed my mind kind of midstream on that particular pick, and it wound up biting me in the butt. Not only did they not cover -6, they lost that game outright. So once again, just a couple of teams that my particular model doesn't really know what to do with. Division games, a lot of weird stuff can happen in games like that. Honestly, I'm kind of leaning on the Seahawks here. It feels like a game with, based on how both of these teams are playing, especially recently, it was kind of like whoever's getting the points, that's the team I'm going to wind up taking. And that's kind of the way I've landed on it. Seattle's taking 3.5 points here as a home dog. And even though they've only covered once against the spread so far this season, I think I'm going to wind up taking them not only to cover the points, I think I'm going to take the Seahawks to win this game outright. Let's take Seattle to get the win in the division against the 49ers in Seattle. So obviously, since I like the Seahawks to win, give me Seattle plus the 3.5 points. Again, buying that extra hook, don't love it. Total in the game set at 49.5. And I'm going a particular way on this that I think goes against the results that we've seen so far in the season. Because between these two teams, they've hit 7 overs so far this year. So the logic would tell you the over is going there, take the over. But there's something about that number. I look at that number and it makes me uneasy. So I think what I'm going to wind up doing here is I'm going to wind up taking an under here. I think it's going to be pretty darn marginal, but I think we're going to go ahead and stick with the under here. So let's go under the 49.5 points in Seattle, San Francisco. I'm going to go like a 26-23, something like that. So again, it's going to be under by like getting half pointed, which I normally don't do in my predictions, but let's take the half point there. Let's go with under the 49.5 points, 26-23 final. Seahawks win. Seahawks cover the plus 3.5, under on the points. So you'll bear with me here. I'm just doing one thing just so I've got a handy piece of information right here for me to refer to. Come on. Come on. Come on. I got a stream to do here. the the masses are waiting for me here. Look, come on now. Let's get this like this and then get this like this. I do love when you folks indulge me in my ridiculousness. All right, we're good to go. Let's go back across the pond now to jolly old England. The Chicago Bears are going to play host to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And despite Jacksonville's win last week, they are a team that my model still absolutely hates, especially on the defensive side. This is one of the worst defenses in the NFL to this point, certainly with how they've been trending lately. Bottom 5 in the league in terms of both total defense, in terms of scoring defense. They're bottom 10 in efficiency. They're bottom 10 in efficiency, in fact, on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. Now, sorry, Kat just made a good joke in the chat that I'll share with you here in a moment. Meanwhile, Chicago is a team that my model absolutely loves. Top 10 across the board on the defensive side. Top 10 actually in offensive efficiency, interestingly enough. They don't move the ball a ton and they don't score a ton of points, but for what they get in yardage, they're doing very well in terms of what they're putting on the scoreboard. So this is like two teams, as far as I'm concerned, going in opposite directions, even though Jacksonville did win last week. Give me the Bears here, and I'm on the Bears heavy in this one. Chicago is acting as the home team here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I believe is where they're playing. But yeah, give me the Bears here outright in a big bad way. Let's take Chicago to get the win over Jacksonville in London. On the line, the Bears are only laying -2 here as a fairly marginal, quote unquote, home favorite. I like them to win, even though the Jags have covered, I think, 3 of 5 spreads, including a push this year. So it's a nice little push on their side. But I think we're going to go ahead and, it's a small price to pay. So let's go ahead and lay the -2. Total in the game here set at 44.5 points. I like the over here. Kind of a coin flip for me, but again, that Jags defense is absolutely terrible. Give me like a 28-21, something like that. Bears win, Bears cover, and give me an over on the 44.5 point total. We're back with more of our diluted blueberry juice this week. So before I go on, I do have to share the joke that Kat put in the chat because it really did crack me up there when I first saw it. Justin says, "Oh, the rule of 4 didn't work last week. Let's see." Clicks pen. Let's take every dog this week. I'm not taking every dog this week. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking through the games, I'm like trying to find spots where I think it makes sense. I didn't find a ton of them. I think the favorites this week are actually legitimate favorites. Not necessarily all of them against the spread, but in terms of just winning the games outright, I actually feel pretty good about most of the favorites this week. It's a little foreshadowing for you. Up next, another matchup of two teams that my model doesn't particularly know what to do with, the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans are coming into this game off of a win a couple of weeks ago and well-rested off of their bye. The Colts are on the tail end of back-to-back road games in this one and coming off of a loss last week. But again, when you look at the way my model kind of looks at teams, Indy, I think they're offense is kind of middling. Tennessee, I actually really like them from an efficiency perspective, but again, that's because they don't put a lot of yardage on the board. They're bottom 5 in the league in yardage over the last 4 games. So that's the way efficiency works. And their defense can be really, really bend, but don't break. And in some cases, sometimes they don't bend at all, but break anyway. So they're a very... Neither one of these teams I would look at as reliable. There's a possibility that Anthony Richardson is back this week for the Colts, but I did look and, Jonathan Taylor, certainly not a gimme that he's back this week. He probably is, but it's definitely not a gimme. And then now Michael Pittman is questionable coming into this game. So again, it always seems like there's a weapon that's just like not quite where they need to be. I kind of like I think I kind of like the Titans here, and maybe this is just like such a close matchup. So by default, take the home team. I'm not. There could be some of that kind of at play here, but I think I'm going to lean on the offensive efficiency here of the Titans. And again, I don't think the Colts have a particularly impressive defense. So I actually like Tennessee to come out on top in this one. Let's take the Titans at home, fresh off the bye. Let's take Tennessee to beat the Colts. On the line right now, Tennessee is only laying -1. And actually, earlier today, Tennessee was a 1-point dog. I don't know if that's maybe where the line opened or something like that, because Chad in the chat here is saying he got Indy at +2.5. So I'm not sure where that is. The last that I saw, they were -1. And I am kind of going against not only the fact that the Colts have covered, I think, at least 3 spreads this year, if not 4. I'm not only going against that, but I'm also going against the public. More than 60% of the public is on the Colts here against the spread. I like Tennessee to win. It's such a marginal number. Let's go ahead and take the -1 on the Titans. Total in the game set at 43 points. The Colts have hit 3 overs so far this year, but where I have the Titans coming out on top this week, I'm going to lean a little bit more on them. They've been a little more middling. I'm going to take an under here. I'm just not seeing a lot of fireworks coming out of this football game either way. So give me an under on the 43-point total. We're going to go like a 23-17 here in favor of Tennessee. So Titans win, Titans cover the -1, and give me an under on the 43-point total. And the last game we're going to look at here before we go into the Packers games, we're going to jump ahead a little bit, is the Houston Texans traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. Now, this is a battle of a couple of teams that my model does not think very highly of, and our first kind of couple of interesting things that are going on coming into this matchup. So the Texans, even though my model doesn't love them, they've won 2 straight games. That's ultimately what matters the most. Houston's won 2 straight. I don't love what I've seen from them on the offensive side. They put up a lot of yardage. They do not tend to put up a lot of points, and they're one of the least efficient defenses in the NFL. They don't give up a lot of yardage. They give up way too many points for the yardage that they do give up. For Houston, we also kind of lean into our first injury news of the week, which is Nico Collins. Nico Collins with a hamstring injury. He actually, I thought originally they were talking about it might only be a week or 2. Nico Collins landed on IR earlier today, so he's going to miss at least the next 4 games. And people say, like, or if you haven't been paying super close attention, you might be like, well, they've got Diggs and they've got tanked out. Like, Nico Collins is the NFL's leading receiver through the first 5 weeks. So that is a big loss for their offense, and it's a loss for an offense that is not efficient to begin with. So to lose the NFL's leading receiver, that is a big deal. Also, it's not really being talked about a ton, but if you looked at the Texans practice report for the first couple of days this week, you would see that Joe Mixon went from a DNP to a limited to a DNP. So he came back in a limited fashion, but did he aggravate that injury? It's an ankle injury I think he was dealing with. Chances are he probably suffered a little bit of a setback there. So where this is like early in the Sunday window, I'm kind of leaning on Joe Mixon not being out there either. So you're without your top receiver, and you're relying on either Cam Akers or Dameon Pierce, who I think is healthy and ready to come back. That's your run game. So it's like, there's question marks there for Houston for sure. On New England's side, finally getting to the other side of this game, one of the 2 or 3 worst offenses in football to start the season. They do not score. They do not move the ball. And that has prompted a quarterback change. This week, Drake May gets his first start in the regular season as a New England Patriot. So they go ahead on a 4-game losing streak. May is going to get the start. That offensive line has not looked good to start the season. Again, Patriots offense, I think, has really struggled. Their defense is very bend but don't break. They give up a ton, and they certainly give up their points. But from an efficiency perspective, they're actually top 10. So it's one of those things where you have like a hyper efficient defense against a not very efficient offense that's missing some of its pieces. So look, the upset here is not dead. Like the upset possibility here is alive. Ultimately, I do think the Texans are a better team, top to bottom. I am going to take Houston to get the win here. However, them favored by a full touchdown against the spread on the road, I don't love that. So while I am going to take Houston to win, I'm kind of going to hold my nose a little bit here and take the +7 points on the New England Patriots. So both of these teams have only covered one spread this year. Neither one of them have been super, super impressive against the spread. I am going against the public on this one as well. So got to take the points there. Take the +7 on the Patriots. Total in the game set at 38. The Texans have only hit one over this season so far. So I think I got to lean under on this one again. I think it's a marginal under, but give me under the 38-point total. Who knows what we're going to get from Drake May on the offensive side. So give me like a 20-16, something like that. Houston wins. Patriots cover the +7. Give me an under on the 38-point total. All right. Let's see how we're doing here. Excellent. All right, let's get caught up. Let's get caught up with chat here as we go. Chicago -2.5, easy win. Well, what was it? Week 2 and 3 both had it split 8 favorites, 8 dogs. Yeah, I mentioned it off the top. It was weeks 2 and 3 were 8 and 8, and then week 4, betting underdogs were 7 and 9 straight up. So it's 8, 8, and 7 in that 3-week span. It was pretty crazy. Dogmageddon is coming, exactly. Chad took India +2.5. Gorian is in the chat here. Atlanta, Houston, Baltimore money line. New York Giants money line. Bills money line. Chad saying he took New England at +8. Gorian saying Bills are parlayed with CU +3.5. Kat, I got a league I'm in with my friend and her coworkers. I had both Nico and Rashee Rice. I'm in hell here. Oh boy. That is brutal. That is an awful way to start the season. Yikes. Gorian, May might get killed. Yeah, May could very much so. Like certainly. They're not good up front. Drake May is not even the best athlete in his house. I like that. That's pretty good. What's new? You always go against logic, but this year that works. I don't always go against logic. I march to the beat of my own drum. That much is very true. Okay, I got a fantasy question here. So before we get to the Packers game, fantasy question. 2 fantasy questions. Should I trade DJ Moore and Gibbs for CD Lamb and ETN? Boy, like any excuse to bring in CD Lamb is a good thing because from here on out, the team that's got the easiest strength of schedule against or for wide receivers is Dallas. So yeah, I mean, God, if you can bring in CD Lamb, period, I think you do it. ETN, I'm a big fan of ETN. I know Tank Bigsby is going to eat into his workload, but I'm a big fan of ETN. Look, Jacob, if you can pull that trade, I would say do it because I think CD Lamb is going to be like probably the wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season. Audio is fantastic. Rabbit, thank you so much. What about Rico Dowdle and Amari Cooper for Devon Achane? I don't think the Achane manager will go for that. I really don't. Because not only are they losing probably the best asset in that trade, unless it's PPR. Even if it is PPR, I think they're losing the best asset in that trade, and they're losing a roster spot. So I would be very, very surprised if they go for that. I mean, if they go for it, yeah. If you're the manager bringing in a Shane, yeah, I would go for it. But I would be surprised if that manager takes that deal. No worries, appreciate it. No worries, Jacob. Awesome, I appreciate it too. All right. The Arizona Cardinals on the road in Green Bay to take on the Packers. Arizona coming into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games. Now, Arizona did pick up a win last week, again against San Francisco, a win that I did not think they were going to get. So that was that was big. I mean, that was really big for the Cardinals as they move forward. This is a team that my model doesn't love. The offense is kind of middling. The defense gives up quite a bit from a yardage perspective. It's not difficult to move the ball on them. They're bottom 10 over their last 4 games. And the one thing that Green Bay does exceptionally well is move the ball. They're top 10 moving the ball on the offensive side. They're also top 10 in putting points on the board, 24.8 points over their last 4 games. Packers are a team that my model really likes. Defensive efficiency, they're way up there, top 10 in the league in terms of the efficiency, as well as the scoring defense. While I do think Arizona is a team that's somewhat on the rise, you look at them and the fact that it's tail end of back-to-back road games, I think historically they're not a team that travels super, super well. I'm going to go ahead and grab Green Bay in this one. At the very least, Green Bay to win this game outright. Now, on the line, they are laying -5. So -5 is not a slam dunk. Like if this was like a -3.5, I'd probably have no problem laying those points. And both of these teams have covered 3 times against the spread so far this season. The -5 is tough. The -5 is definitely tough here. This one's, yeah, this one really could go either way. I think I will let, and I'll admit this right up front, I think I will let my bias get the better of me here, and I think I'm going to go ahead and lay that -5. I've liked the way that Jordan Love has looked for the most part since coming back from the injury. So I think I'll go ahead and lay the -5 because I mean them winning by a touchdown is a completely realistic final score as far as I'm concerned. Total in the game set at 47.5. Both of these teams have hit 3 overs so far this season. Let's go ahead and have that trend continue over 47.5 points in Arizona Green Bay. Let's go a full touchdown. Let's go 31-24 in favor of the Packers at Lambeau. Packers win. Packers cover the -5. Although, again, if you go the other way, I'm not going to fight you on it. And give me an over on the 47.5 points. I think it gets to a mid-50. All right, time for another pack of games. Let's go ahead and do 4 in a row here. Battle of the NFC South. The Tampa Bay Bucks on the road in New Orleans taking on the Saints. Now, again, this is kind of in that patch of area that who knows what kind of impact the hurricane might have. I mean, if the game was in Tampa Bay, obviously it would be a completely different story. Even kind of with the way with how far we are out from the game right now, and I really want to say I don't have like direct family down in Florida or down in the southern United States. I do know people that live down there and who have ties down there. I wish nothing but the best for anybody that is facing what they're facing, like what's happening to them right now. It's going to be very, very rough period of time here, and my heart absolutely goes out to everybody that is impacted by that. The Bucks are coming into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games, coming off of a loss last week, but they do have the benefit of the long week, so they have had that extra, or will have had that extra amount of time to prepare for this game. Whereas New Orleans coming into this on the short week, I just got a notification a little bit ago in fact, that Alvin Kamara has been limited in practice, but he's the kind of player as well that I expect him to have like a questionable tag for the majority of the season and play on Sunday and have excellent results. So it's one of those things where it's like keep an eye on it, but I don't necessarily think it's a huge deal at this point. What is a huge deal, obviously, Derek Carr with his oblique injury. I imagine this sets him back at least 2 to 3 weeks, if not more. I don't think the plan is to put him on IR. So I think they're expecting probably after a 2 to 3 week absence that he's probably ready to come back and play. But as somebody mentioned in the chat, that likely means that it's Spencer Rattler's time to get the start here in this game. And the I just think this is a tough spot in a division game. Yes, it's at home, so that he does have that benefit, but I think the Bucks are kind of an angry team based off of what happened last week. I kind of get the feeling that they're going to take it out on the Saints, who again, I'll mention, they're one of the most efficient defenses in the league. So it's not like you're going to be able to do whatever you want to them. But I do think Tampa Bay comes out and gets a fairly convincing win here. So let's take the Tampa Bay Bucks on the road in New Orleans to get a win over the Saints. On the line, the Saints are taking +3.5 here as home dogs. Both of these teams have covered 3 times against the spread so far this season. So either way you want to go on this, I would totally understand. I'm going to lay the -3.5 here on Tampa Bay. It's not an obnoxious price to pay, and it feels like probably a 2-possession game to me. So let's go ahead and lay the -3.5. Total in the game here set at 41.5 points. I am going to lean on an over here. Both of these teams have hit 3 overs so far this season. So let's continue with that trend. Take over the 41.5 point total in New Orleans, Tampa Bay. Let's go like a 27-17. Again, 2 possessions, 10-point win. Bucks win, Bucks cover, and over on the points. Let's do another quick one here for you. The Cleveland Browns on the road in Philadelphia taking on the Eagles. Funny enough, this is a matchup of 2 teams that, like, my model doesn't actually think are all that different. Probably should, because I mean, like, look at the 2 rosters, they should be night and day. And it's worth saying the Eagles are probably getting AJ Brown back, which completely changes the context of their offense. Like that is an offense that will be able to better unlock all the things that they're trying to do because they're going to be getting their number 1 weapon back. Now he'll probably be somewhat limited for a couple of weeks, but I do certainly expect their offense to look way different with one of the better wide receivers in football. The Cleveland Browns are losers of 3 straight games, also on their 3rd straight road game, which we know from the past has been sometimes just absolutely deadly. So we're going to go ahead and lean on the Eagles here pretty heavy, also because they are well rested coming off of their bye. So despite the fact that they lost a couple of weeks ago, let's take the Eagles here at home to get the win over the Browns. On the line, the Eagles are laying -9, and I kind of have a policy, at least this year, on the spreads. Like, if you're a really heavy favorite, you have to deserve to be that really heavy favorite. And I don't necessarily know that what the Eagles have put on the field so far this season constitutes deserving to be a heavy favorite. At least maybe not by this much. At the same time, there's so much going against the Browns, and the Browns are the Browns, and it's not just the quarterback. They've got defensive injuries all over the place. It's not the team that anybody thought it was going to be. So even though Philly probably doesn't deserve to be a -9 favorite based on what they've done this season, I'm still going to lay the -9 here because in this matchup, it feels like whether it's justified or not, it's probably going to hit. So let's go ahead and lay the -9. Browns have only covered 1 spread so far this year as well. Total in the game set at 43. This is tough to take an under for me because I feel like Philly is going to get into the 30s. So it's tough for me to take an under on that. I think we're going to go ahead and take over on the 43-point total. Going to go like a 30-17, something like that. Make it a little more competitive, I think, than some other people think it's going to be. But yeah, we'll take Philly to win. We'll lay the -9 because I do think it's going to hit, and give me the over on the 43-point total. Now we come to one of the most interesting games of this week. The Washington Commanders in Baltimore taking on the Ravens. The Ravens, winners of 3 straight games, despite the fact that that defense does not look anything remotely close to a Baltimore Ravens defense. It just doesn't. They're bottom 10 in efficiency. They're bottom 10 in scoring defense. They don't look like a Ravens defense at all. However, that offense is churning along. They're efficient. They move the ball a ton. They put a ton of points on the board. They are as advertised on the offensive side, unless you're a fantasy manager of Mark Andrews. Other than that, they are as advertised on the offensive side. Gorian makes a great point, and I 1000% agree with it. This should be the Sunday night game. The NFL should hold the right to flex games all season long. All season long. Maybe if you want to go the first 4 weeks, okay, fine. After that, we kind of know what these teams are. After that, I really, really advocate that the NFL should be able to flex games to Sunday. Like maybe not flex games to different days, I get that, but to flex it from an early window to the night game, like a couple of weeks ahead of time, they should 100% have the ability to do that. The Commanders have won 4 straight games. Like they lost in week 1, and since then they have won. They've reeled off 4 straight against like not incredible caliber opponents. Like if we go back to week 2, so you know, we look at who have they beaten? They beat the Giants in Washington, so you know, there you go. Week 3, they went to Cincinnati and beat Cincinnati. That's a legitimate win. They went to Arizona and beat Arizona, so that's a legitimate win as well. And then at home they beat Cleveland. Now, Gorian makes another great point in the chat. You play who you play. Exactly. I'm not going to take those wins away from them. The caliber of opponent does matter, but it's not the be all end all. So, as you can probably tell, this is my big upset of the week. The Washington Commanders go into Baltimore, a very difficult place to win, and beat the Ravens. And the reason that I think that is not only because of how good the Commanders have been on the offensive side, because they've been as advertised, they've been as good basically as Baltimore has been. It's the defense. The Commanders on the defensive side of the ball are top 10 in the last month or so basically the entirety of the season, in terms of total defense and scoring defense. It's night and day what this defense has looked like. And Baltimore is night and day as well, but in the exact opposite sense. They don't seem like a Ravens defense. This doesn't seem like a Commanders defense, but that's a good thing in this instance. A very good thing. It's time to find out if this Commanders team, and Jaden Daniels in particular, it's time to find out if this team is for real. If they go into Baltimore and beat Baltimore, look me in the eyes as I say this. If they go into Baltimore and beat Baltimore, the Commanders are for real. End of story. I'm going to take it. Washington goes into Baltimore and beats the Ravens. So the Ravens are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Obviously, since I like Washington to win, give me that plus 6.5. I feel like that's a good hedge either way, given that Washington has covered 4 times against the spread this season. Total in this game set at 51.5 points. With these two offenses, that number is going that way. This has a chance to flirt with 60 points easy. And maybe it's a walk-off. Maybe it's one of those where it's a super ultra competitive game that makes you think like, I'd like to see this again in a Super Bowl. Washington and Baltimore Super Bowl. Let's see it happen. They've both hit 4 overs this year. Let's take over on the 51.5 point total. I don't feel bad about it either. 31-28 is going to be my final score here for the Commanders, who win, cover, and go over on the point total. And the last game we're going to look at before we jump ahead and take a look at what is the Sunday Night Football matchup, we're going to look at the Los Angeles Chargers on the road in Denver taking on the Broncos. Now, the Broncos are winners of 3 straight games, and all of a sudden, don't look now, but mostly because of that defense, the Broncos feel like they're capable of beating anybody. The Broncos feel like as long as the offense can do something, they're in every single football game. It does not matter who they play. Very, very good on the defensive side are the Broncos, arguably one of the NFL's best. And I don't even think that's much of an argument. The Chargers are losers of 2 straight, but are coming into this game off of their bye, so they will be well rested. That is certainly a good sign. But just a little bit earlier, I, again, got another notification. Again, fantasy football is wonderful for this stuff. Justin Herbert is questionable. And I think he's going to be questionable, kind of like my Kamara take. Like, I think he's just going to have the Q tag for the majority of the season. So I don't think we should be surprised necessarily that he's questionable. But if he's limited in any way, shape, or form, this Denver Broncos defense is going to eat them alive. I don't think that's hyperbolic to say. This Broncos defense is capable of destroying a quarterback that's not at 100%. So if he's not at 100%, those Denver pass rushers going to pin their ears back and make his life miserable. Knock him out of the game, maybe. Who knows? I really like the Broncos here. Division matchup, home dog by 3 points. I really like the Broncos here to win this game outright. Let's take Denver at home to get the win over the Chargers, despite the fact that, again, the Chargers are well rested off the bye. So, obviously, that +3, I'm more than happy to take it. That is kind of going against the fact that the Chargers have covered, like, I think 4 games so far this season. So, like, they've been very, very good against the spread. But we're going to go ahead and take the +3 here on the Broncos because I like them to win outright. Let's see. Total in the game set at 35.5 points. The Chargers have not hit a single over this season. They have hit 0 of them. So I think even though this is a super low number, let's stick under on it because, again, I think it's going to be a virtuoso defensive performance from Denver. So under the 35.5 point total, let's go like a 20-13, something like that. Broncos win. Broncos cover the +3 under the 35.5 point total. So before we go in to look at Sunday night, let's get caught up here in the chat. Let's scroll up here a little bit. Let's see. I don't like pulling the lucky card for teams, but Arizona did get lucky that Jake Moody got hurt for San Francisco. Niners had to pass up a few field goal opportunities. That's fair. Green Bay, Bucks huge, says Gorian. Saints has issues. Bucks -3.5. Rattler is not him. Anthony Richardson is also horrible. Don't say that. He's my dynasty quarterback. Don't say that, man. Martin is in the chat too. What's up, Martin? Hi, guys. Forgot about the show. Gorian, love your Titans play. Awesome. We love that. No O-line either in New Orleans. In what quarter do we expect the Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore fight to take off? That comes from Kat. I'm going to say like late in Q3. Gorian says Eagles by 1,000. Cleveland's O-line has been hella underperforming as well. That whole top to bottom is not looking good. It's true. See, Chad, strange picks for me this week. I took Washington at +7.5. It's not strange for me. I got them winning the game outright. Kat, I heard CBS were being stingy bitches about giving up this game. Interesting. Who in the hell wants to watch the Giants and Cincy? Well, we're going to talk about them next. Why was a game even scheduled for Sunday Night Football to begin with? What did last year tell y'all about either team? Fair enough. Giants messed up my 14-point play. Ouch, yikes. Sunday Night Football needs to be either be marquee matchups with big namers, division matchups, or historical matchups. Yeah, I totally agree with all of that, Kat. Absolutely. I know my arse is in my 20s, but I see nothing historical between New York and Cincinnati. Gorian says Tucker from 52 yards will win it. I need my parlay. Rabbit checking in. Audio has some slight crackles now, but not as bad as it was those past couple of weeks. Okay, cool. Good to know. Good to know. Denver beat LA 3 in a row, plus 1 3 in a row. Looks good. Ride the train. Martin says, I like the Broncos. I like Sean Payton. Never liked the Chargers. Again, the Chargers are still that team that like I can't trust them because they don't do nice things to me. Like I have no faith in them. All right. So let's look at this much maligned Sunday night football game between the Cincinnati Bengals in New York taking on the Giants. Cincinnati coming off of a loss last week, obviously a hotly contested loss right down to the wire against the Baltimore Ravens. The Giants coming off of a big win last week. That was against Seattle. And once again, my great shame that I didn't trust my gut on that Seattle -6. Absolutely should have, but we move on. After that win, my model here actually kind of likes the Giants. Not necessarily on the offensive side, they're pretty middling there, but defensively, they're only giving up 19 points a game. Their efficiency is about as good on the offensive side as it is on the defensive side. Defensively, a little bit better than league average, which is actually a good clip better than league average. And I think between these two teams, even though Cincinnati's offense is really starting to pick up and is really starting to look like Cincinnati, that defense is atrocious. Like, that's a bad defense in Cincinnati. There's no other way around it. They are giving up the most points in the NFL on average. Their defensive efficiency is one of, if not the absolute worst in the league so far this season. They're giving up a ton of yardage. That defense has been very, very bad. And it's not just the game last week, it's been a microcosm of their entire season. So I kind of think I like the Giants here, especially where the game's in New York. They should get Devin Singletary back for this game, which is definitely a boost to the offensive side. I think I like the Giants here. Again, my model certainly likes them. Does not really know what to do with Cincinnati at this point. If the offense for Cincinnati continues on this trajectory that they've been on, this is going to be a good team before you know it. But as of right now, I don't really think I can trust that defense. Give me the Giants here at home to get an upset win on Sunday Night Football against the Bengals. On the line, obviously, Giants taking plus 3.5. They've covered 3 spreads this year. This is definitely going against the public, who are pretty heavily on Cincinnati in this one. Give me the plus 3.5 on New York. Total in the game set at 48 points. And since I'm leaning heavily on the Giants, I'm also going to lean heavily on the fact that they've only hit 1 over so far this season. And I'm going to take an under on this 48-point total. I'm going to go like a 24-21. Maybe it's a walk-off field goal for a second straight week against the Bengals, but I'm going to take under the 48-point total. So Giants win, Giants cover the plus 3.5. Give me under on the 48 points. All right, 3 more games before we look at Monday Night Football, which is being contested between Buffalo and New York. But we're going to start in Las Vegas, where the Raiders are going to play host to a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is reeling off of back-to-back losses, but still playing with an exceptionally good defense. And in Las Vegas, it looks like we have a quarterback change, ladies and gentlemen. The Raiders are benching Gardner Minshew after a pair of really poor performances. Who would have thought it without their biggest weapon in Devontae Adams? Maybe the pass game might suffer. But yeah, Gardner Minshew has been benched, And it looks like we are going to be back to the Aiden O'Connell experience, which I talked about last season. And I had a couple of people on Twitter in Raider Nation who got very, very mad at me for the fact that I took what I thought was an honest appraisal of Aiden O'Connell as a quarterback. And my appraisal of him is not all that different. Like, look, he had 10 starts last year. It's a skill to be able to start that many games in the NFL. It just is. I'm not saying Aiden O'Connell is a bad quarterback. I'm saying Aiden O'Connell is a painfully average quarterback. 10 starts last year. I think he had 12 touchdown passes. I think he had 7 picks. So a little over 1 touchdown, a little under 1 pick on average, 215 yards a game or something like that. I think he's a painfully average quarterback, and I don't think he necessarily increases the ceiling of this offense for the Raiders. And if he doesn't increase the ceiling of this Raiders offense, their defense is not good enough to win this game. It's just not. The Steelers should be able to eat on this game defensively. Let's take Pittsburgh pretty darn heavily on the road here in Vegas to get the win over the Raiders. Also worth noting on the defensive side for the Raiders, Christian Wilkins just got moved to IR. He's likely to miss most of the season dealing with a foot injury. So I definitely like the Steelers in this one. On the line, Pittsburgh is laying -3 here as a road favorite. Raiders taking +3. Pittsburgh has covered 3 times against the spread this season. Let's go ahead and lay the -3 on the Steelers. Total in the game set at 36.5 points. The Steelers have only hit 1 over so far this year. So even though the Raiders have hit 3, if we're looking at an offense that's not at its pinnacle, give me an under on this very, very low number. It's going to be pretty close, but give me an under. Under 36.5 points in Pittsburgh, Vegas. Let's go like 21-13 in favor of the Steelers. Steelers win, Steelers cover, under on the points. Let's go to Jerry World now, where the Dallas Cowboys are going to be playing host to the Detroit Lions. Detroit coming into this game fresh off of their bye. Both of these teams winners of 2 consecutive, despite the fact that my model doesn't really like the Cowboys all that much. Doesn't hate them, but doesn't love them. Again, they move the ball very well on the offensive side. They do not score as many points based on the yardage that they get. They should be scoring quite a bit more. So the offense moves the ball, but they kind of lack that finishing power, or have to this point in the season. And defensively, I don't think the Cowboys are anything special. Detroit, I think they move the ball exceptionally well. They score their points that they should be scoring. And on the defensive side, I think this is a better defense than people give them credit for. I really do. Not necessarily every game. They're not the most reliable defense, but I think by and large, this is a defense that people don't give enough credit to. My model likes Detroit just fine. I like Detroit just fine. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to go into Jerry World and hang a loss on the Dallas Cowboys. I like Detroit to beat Dallas. So on the line, Dallas is taking +3 here as a home dog. I like Detroit to win. That's a relatively small price to pay. I'm going to lean on the fact that they have covered 3 spreads in just 4 games, because of course they were off last week. So they're 75% against the spread this year. Let's go ahead and grab that -3 on Detroit. Total in the game set at 52 points. The Lions have hit 3 overs in 4 games this season, so I like the over in this one to hit over the 52-point total in Detroit, Dallas. Let's go like a 31-23, something like that. Detroit wins. Detroit covers the -3, and give me an over on the 52-point total. And the last game before we look at Monday Night Football is another battle of the NFC South. The Atlanta Falcons on the road in Carolina taking on the Panthers. Now, what I will say about this right from the jump is this is a game that I've gone back and forth on against the spread, not necessarily in who I think is going to win. So that kind of tips it a little bit. I like the Falcons in this one, but I have gone back and forth against the spread on this one a couple of times. Atlanta comes into this game off of the long week, winners of 2 straight. Again, I did not have them winning last week, but they certainly proved me wrong on that one. A team that I think still has some issues on the offensive side of the ball, even though they are top 10 in their last 4 games in terms of yardage and in terms of points scored. So it's not like the offense is struggling necessarily, at least not by the numbers, but you watch this offense and it's not as polished or doesn't feel as polished as it should be. On Carolina's side, they're losers of 2 straight. They've won a game, which is nice. I mean, it's nice for them to have won a game this early in the season, but I kind of feel like they're right back to this defense is pretty bad. The offense is not great. Although, look, I put it on Twitter. Kat knows this. Kat already liked the tweet. There are a ton of people, and I say this from my chest. There are a ton of people that owe Chuba Hubbard a written and public apology for burying him for the 2nd year in a row. Because last year, they're like, oh, they brought in Miles Sanders. That's Chuba who, and just pushed him to the back. And then all he did was have a really, really, really credible and great season. And this coming into this year, oh, they drafted Jonathan Brooks. Yeah, I know that he's going to be missing, he'll miss the first 4 games, but as soon as he comes back, Chuba who? Chuba Hubbard's in the top 5 in rushing to this point in the season. So there's a lot of people that wrote off Chuba Hubbard in back-to-back seasons, sometimes the same people who did it twice and were just like, well, I was wrong last year, but I'm going to be right this year. Nah, Chuba Hubbard is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I don't just say that because he's my country mate in Canada. Chuba Hubbard is the truth. That's a really high caliber back at this level. Chuba Hubbard should start on a lot of football teams. Now that we've got that over with, Falcons are going to win this game. For sure. They've got the benefit of the long week here too, because they played Tampa Bay on Thursday night. So they've had extra time to prepare for an opponent that is not as good as them. So even though my model doesn't really know what to do with the Falcons at this point, especially on the defensive side, I feel pretty good about them in this spot, even though the game is in Carolina. Let's take Atlanta on the road to get a win over the Panthers. Kat, you got a Chuba jersey in that closet behind you. Don't you lie to us. I don't, but I absolutely should. I absolutely should. I should get that, and then when they win a game, wear it on this stream. I might just do that. So again, I'm not 100% sure what to do with -6. Because again, by the numbers, Atlanta's offense looks just fine. With the eyeball test, we know that that's not true. So 6 points in a division game is not the easiest. It's not a slam dunk to lay that many points. I think ultimately I'm going to have to do it. Carolina's only covered once against the spread so far this season. The defense is not good. So to hold an opposition that is better than them to, less than a touchdown against the spread, it's a tough one. This I could so easily see winding up as a push. Like a 30-24 final is totally a credible prediction, but I'm going to go ahead and lay the -6 here. I think I kind of got to hold my nose, just the teensiest bit, but I'll lay the -6 on the Falcons. Total in the game set at 47 points. Atlanta has hit 4 overs in 5 games so far this season. Let's go ahead and take another over here, over the 47 points in Atlanta, Carolina. Let's go with 30-21. I feel good about the Falcons getting to 30 points. So over the 47 points, Falcons win and Falcons cover the -6. All right, last game of the week. The Buffalo Bills on their 3rd consecutive road game, mind you, travel to New York to take on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets, division matchup of the AFC East, and a debut coaching matchup for Jeff Ulbrich, who was the Jets defensive coordinator, is now their interim head coach as the Jets shockingly fire Robert Saleh in the midst of just a 2-3 start. So I understand that they have some misgivings about the offense. I totally get that. Jets offense has not looked great to start the season. Not at all. They're not getting much of anything out of the run game. Arguably, Braylon Allen has been better than Breece Hall to this point. That should never happen. Defensively, I think this Jets team is excellent. Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. That's not a shock to me and shouldn't be a shock to anybody. Jeff Ulbrich was their defensive coordinator. So if you're trying to fix the offense, why do you fire a defensive-minded coach and promote a defensive-minded coach? That doesn't make much sense to me. Now, I get it because the alternative was Nathaniel Hackett. And I said in the, I can't remember if it was the Ante and Co chat. I think it might have been. Because after the firing was announced, I was like, if they promote Nathaniel Hackett to head coach, Aaron Rodgers is the one running this team. And that's all I said. I was like, if they make Hackett the coach, that's how you know. They didn't. They made the other guy the coach. But again, I don't think that's going to fix the offense. I really don't. And it's not all going to fix the offense that Aaron Rodgers is dealing with an ankle injury. Very obviously. He's certainly talked about it. He's dealing with an ankle injury that he suffered during the game last week. I think he'll be fine, but I think he's going to be out there and be somewhat limited. And I think this Bills defense is good enough to take advantage of that. I don't think this is going to be an incredible virtuoso game from Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden just because they hired a new coach. I think this Bills offense is super, super, super efficient. They don't move the ball like they're supposed to, but they put up points far ahead of how they move the ball. One of the most efficient offenses in the league to this point in the season. Even though they've lost 2 straight, the Jets have also lost 2 straight. And even though they're on the tail end of their 3rd straight road game, I actually like the Bills in this spot by a good clip. So let's go ahead and take Buffalo on the road in New York to get the win over the Jets. Even though the new head coach voodoo is obviously very much real. So Jets are taking +2.5 in this game. I like the Bills to win. Small price to pay. Let's lay the -2.5 on Buffalo. Total in this game set at 41 points. The Jets have only hit 1 over so far this year, but since I like the Bills to win, I'm going to take a very marginal over on this number, go over the 41-point total. And I'm going to go like a 26-17, something like that. That's 43. Yeah. So that winds up hitting the over. So yeah, 26-17, Bills win, Bills cover, and give me the over on the points. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the show. Those are the picks for week number 6 in the NFL. Appreciate you so much for taking the time and coming out to the show this week. Once again, that's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Enjoy the games in week 6. Stay safe if you are in the path of the hurricane, and we will see you again for week number 7. All right. There you go, folks. That's the picks portion of the show done. We're now in Bridgewater's Finest After Dark, the after party portion of the show. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, for the people that were basically here from the beginning, listening to the audio, what do you think? A little bit better, not quite as crackly as it's been the last couple of weeks, but I think LA Rabbit had said that there was a little bit, but not as bad as has been the last couple of weeks. Are we saying something like that? We'll just wait for some confirmation about that. Also, I want to know what you guys think. What picks are you way against? What picks did you love? What picks did you hate? Let me know that in the chat too. Let's get caught up on some of these messages here, and we'll get to the bottom. Let's see. Chargers and Broncos got some great Oregon rep going into this game too. I'm a happy camper. Cat with his Oregon love, standing proud. San Francisco killed my 12-pointer too. Ouch, hurts. Giants, big boys are better. Giants I took, they beat Cincy 2 in a row, plus 3.5, like that. Giants money line, even if no Malik Neighbors. Good. Pittsburgh has injuries. My gut says Pittsburgh, but I know there's some weird voodoo with them when they play the Raiders. Fair enough. Vegas just seems to get them more often than not. Chad likes Pittsburgh at -3. Gorian, because we must pick every game. Pittsburgh is it, but otherwise, if you play that game, you need help. I like it. You're not wrong. I'm a degenerate myself too. Like, look, it happens. It happens for sure. Dallas beat them though. 6 in a row. Dallas has beaten Detroit. Good information to have. Gorian loved Detroit here. He also likes Atlanta. Chad likes Atlanta at -6. Scary, but I took it. Talking about Chuba Hubbard, Kat says he grabbed him in the LOA. Hopefully he saves my season. He will. He's a good Canadian boy, and he's going to save your season. You got a Chuba jersey in the closet behind you. Buffalo to win -2.5. Because Aaron has the front office by the balls. A little bit true. Jet front office doesn't make sense. Jets are the Jets, just another Cleveland. Cat, they're doing the same shit that Cleveland is doing. They don't want to admit being wrong about the quarterback, so they're scapegoating other people. Ooh, I like that a lot. Good luck to all. That DC pick is because you hate me, ain't it? I could never hate you, Cat. You're too involved in my community, and you're just an excellent human being. So no, I can't hate you. Don't take my Eagles on the point spread. All is good, sound and video. Kat says, mic quality is the best I've heard it in the last few weeks. Awesome. Washington over Ravens, best pick. I love it. I love that somebody else is enthusiastic about that pick. Again, that's the litmus test. That's the litmus test for the Commanders. If they're for real, they can go into Baltimore and beat that team. It's going to be a track meet, but if they're for real, that's the litmus test. If they can pass it, there's nobody in the league they can't beat. All right, hour and 11. We're going to get you out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming to the live stream. As always, really, really appreciate it every single week. I'm glad the mic sounded better. I'm going to continue tinkering, and hopefully it just keeps sounding better and better. If we have another week where we have a blow up, I'm just going to have to get a new mic. And that's just, as a content creator, I have to eat that sometimes. But I'm glad it sounded better. And I'll let you in on Twitter on exactly what change I kind of made that I think had an impact. So I'm so glad that it at least had a bit of an impact, and hopefully we continue moving forward from there. Thank you so much for checking out the show this week, folks. Enjoy the games this week. Again, stay safe. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, except instead of Batman, I'm Canadian Batman.